very pleased to have as our next guest, a special guest this hour, Mr. Byron Henry. He is with the law firm of Scheef and Stone and down in Texas, and he joins us today to talk about the new announcement today by President Obama of his Supreme Court nominee, Merrick Garland. The Republicans already say no, but Byron, what do you know about Mr. Garland?
Well, good afternoon, Mike. I can tell you that he is almost universally praised for having impeccable academic credentials. His resume is impressive and includes stints with the Justice Department as lead attorney for the Justice Department in the Oklahoma City bombing case. He played a role in the Unabomber case. He has been he's the chief judge of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, often termed the second highest court in the country, sitting in the District of Columbia. He was nominated by President Clinton and confirmed in 1997 to that court. So really, when you talk about Judge Garland or Chief Judge Garland, you're talking about not voting on him or not confirming him or the controversy surrounding the Supreme Court nominee. You're really not talking much about his qualifications, talking a little bit about ideology on a few issues where there's some concerns, and mainly, of course, the fight between the Senate and the President regarding a nomination in an election year. But very little can be said negative about Chief Judge Garland. In fact, most of the Republicans, when he was nominated back in 97 or 95, back when they're still in the Senate today, like Orrin Hatch and Chuck Grassley, praised Judge Garland as being very deliberate and modest and a very capable nominee when he was confirmed to the D.C. Circuit.
Byron Henry is our guest. Our phone lines are open at 433-WSVA. He is an attorney, a partner in the appellate law firm of Scheef and Stone, and his practice fixes on the area of business, litigation, and civil appeals. I was talking to a guest last hour about this, that pretty much any other president and any other year politically, and this one is almost a no-brainer. But this year, with this president and the loss of the major domo of conservative constitutional thought on the Supreme Court, and all of a sudden, this becomes a major political hot potato.
Yes, I think that's a key to this whole issue. It's not just the traditional rule that has been followed by Senators Leahy and Biden from the Democratic side with respect to not confirming Supreme Court nominees in the last year of a president's term, which has been it's a rule that it's actually termed the Biden rule for lack of a more descriptive term, the Joe Biden rule. So it's not unprecedented, but Judge Garland would normally be what's considered a consensus nominee when you have a split body, a split power between a president and the Senate. However, there's two factors going on: a bitter fight over, this president's executive authority on a lot of issues. He's picked a fight with Republicans on a lot of issues, and the presidential election year, which is heating up, and the fact that this is the venerated Justice Scalia's seat, so to speak. And you can add to that the fact that on very controversial issues, such as religious freedom, the Hobby Lobby case, the same-sex marriage case, the gun rights under the Second Amendment, those are all basically 5-4 issues. So if they're 5-4 issues and you lose Justice Scalia, now they're 4-4 issues on the court, which means the next justice, no matter how moderate, no matter how qualified, no matter how consensus, will basically be the justice that decides the scope of the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and many other rights and liberties that Americans enjoy.
Byron, it's fascinating to me because it seems every time they join the judiciary, they move left. John Roberts was seen as a conservative by all observers, and yet he has made some decisions over the last few years that have puzzled and, rankled conservatives, even though he was supposed to be one of theirs.
Certainly, the trend in history, if you look at it, it seems like more Republican-nominated justices that are considered center-right or conservative have moved left than vice versa. You did have the appointment back in the 60s where President Kennedy appointed Justice Byron White to the Supreme Court, and there's this feeling in this historical, it's an anomaly really, where he drifted right on some issues. But other than that one, I don't know any good hard evidence or any good examples of justices that have gotten on the court and moved right, especially in the last few generations. Maybe you go way back, maybe it happened. But certainly a lot of justices nominated by Republican presidents have moved left, and you only have to look as far as the last justice to retire or close to Justice John Paul Stevens, who was appointed and confirmed, and he was nominated, of course, by President Ford and became one of the most liberal justices on a split court.
And that's really the big fear of Republicans and conservatives in the Senate, that this is possibly a way to tip it 5-4 the other direction.
Well, there's no doubt that no one argues that Merrick Garland, Chief Judge Garland, is a conservative, or that even he is a straight down the ticket, independent. He is a Democrat appointee. He will be center left of all the court, which means the court will tip from center right, and it will not move to the middle. He's not right in the middle. He is a left-leaning justice. And the issue with judging people's ideology by the Court of Appeals record is that they are bound by Supreme Court decisions on big constitutional issues. So often you don't learn when a judge is on a lower court what their own individual feeling is on these issues or ideology, because they are bound to apply the Supreme Court. Once they get on the Supreme Court, that's when sometimes you first learn how they really feel about the Second Amendment or how they really feel about abortion rights. And unfortunately, Republicans are nervous that may be too late to learn once he's on the court.
Yeah, and that Second Amendment is becoming more and more important with the wacky way the government is acting. Byron Henry, a real pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Good luck with your new firm, Scheef Stone, and thanks very much for joining us this brief time.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
That's Byron Henry. He is with the law firm of Scheef Stone in Texas, and we appreciate him joining us today.